Close your eyes and think thoughts of goodwill. Goodwill is a wish for happiness, for true happiness, because true happiness comes from within. The desire to be happy in this way is not a selfish desire. Also, it doesn't conflict with anyone else's true happiness, which is why this is an immeasurable attitude that you can develop. You can send it to anyone. But start with yourself. Tell yourself, may I be truly happy? May I understand the causes for true happiness and be willing and able to act on them. Then extend the same thought to others. Start with people who are close to your heart, your family, your very close friends. May they find true happiness too. And then extend that thought out in ever-widening circles to people you know well and like. To people you like even though you don't know them so well. To people you're more neutral about. And to people you don't like. Goodwill doesn't require that you like other people, just that you wish them true happiness. You wish that they could understand the causes for true happiness and be willing and able to act on them too. That's a wish you can have for anyone without hypocrisy. Spread thoughts of goodwill to people you don't even know. And not just people, living beings of all times. East, west, north, south, above and below, out to infinity. So we all find true happiness in our hearts. Now bring your attention to the breath. Take a couple of good, long, deep in and out breaths. And notice where you feel the breathing process in the body most clearly. Because that's what we're talking about when we talk about breath. It's not the air coming in and out from the nose. It's the movement of energy in the body that allows the air to come in, allows it to go out. You can feel that anywhere. So where it's most comfortable to stay focused, focus your attention there. And then ask yourself if long breathing feels good at that spot. If you're not sure, you can try other rhythms of breathing. Shorter, more shallow, heavier, lighter, faster, slower. See what rhythm of breathing feels best for the body right now. If you have any thoughts that wander away from the breath, just let them go. You don't have to chase them down. If you don't pay attention to them, they end on their own. Give your full attention to the breath. If there are any pains in the body, don't focus on the pains. Focus on the parts of the body that you can make comfortable by the way you breathe. Ajahn Lee's images of a mango. You cut open a mango and you find it has a rotten spot. You don't eat the rotten spot, you cut it out and you focus. You eat the part that's good. The same way, focus on the parts of the body that can be made comfortable. As the breath gets comfortable, sometimes there's a tendency to forget about the breath and focus on the comfort, in which case you lose your foundation. So the next step is to be aware of the whole body as you breathe in, the whole body as you breathe out. And a good way to build up to that whole body awareness is to go through the body first, section by section. You become familiar with how the breath feels in the different parts of the body. So start down around the navel, the middle of the abdomen. Locate that part of the body in your awareness. Watch it for a while as you breathe in and breathe out. If you feel any sense of tension or tightness in that part of the body, allow it to relax, so that no new tension builds up as you breathe in, and you don't hold on to any tension as you breathe out. Now move your attention up to the solar plexus, the area right in front of your stomach, and follow the same steps there. 1, locate that part of the body in your awareness. 2, watch it for a while as you breathe in and breathe out. See what rhythm of breathing feels good there. And then 3, if there's any sense of tightness or tension in that part of the body, allow it to relax. Now bring your attention to the middle of the chest and follow the same steps there. Now bring your attention to the base of the throat and follow the same steps there. Now bring your attention to the middle of the head. As you breathe in, think of the breath energy entering not only through the nose, but also through the ears and the eyes. In from the back of the head, down from the top of the head, going deep into the brain. And then as you breathe out, think of it radiating out from the head in all directions. Working through any patterns of tension you may feel around the eyes, the forehead, the jaws, the back of the neck. And gently dissolving those patterns of tension away. If you're meditating on your own, you can go through the rest of the body, down the shoulders, out the arms, down the back, out the legs, at your own pace. But for right now, choose any one spot in the body where it seems most congenial to stay focused. Bring your attention there, and then from that spot, let it spread out to fill the whole body. So you're aware of the whole body breathing in, the whole body breathing out. Allow the breath to find whatever rhythm feels best. Your only duty right now is to try to maintain this sense of centered but broad awareness. Like a spider on a web. The spider is in one spot on the web, but it's sensitive to the entire web. Because this awareness is centered but broad, it's a good basis for insight to arise, as you can see the mind in action. But for the time being, don't worry about the insights. Focus on getting this foundation as solid as you can. you're welcome to continue meditating as I give the talk. Years back, I was visiting my father, and we decided to visit an old house we had built many years ago. It was a 3-hour drive from where my father is living now. So we went there, and noticed that the people who had bought the house were not taking good care of it. It was beginning to fall apart. But we had worked very hard. So, of course, we hired builders, but we did part of the work ourselves. My father was upset. And on the way back, he commented, he said, I look back on my life and I can't see that I've leaving anything behind, that I've accomplished anything. He went through all his different jobs that he'd had. I had 2 reactions to that. One was, well, there's me. He had raised 3 sons. I thought he'd done a good job. But the other thing was, it made me realize that if you look for your success or your happiness in outside accomplishments, it's really outside your control. The world can snuff out just about anything you might think of doing. If you look at the world around us right now, it's becoming every day it's becoming a more and more unfriendly place. The social fabric seems to be tearing apart. Which means that if you want to find happiness in life, you have to look inside. You have to develop your own inner resources. You have to have an independent source of happiness within. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be selfish. In fact, the qualities that you need to develop in order to develop that inside resource involve being kind and generous with others. Think about the perfections that the Buddha taught. A list of generosity, virtue, renunciation, discernment, energy, endurance, truth, determination, goodwill, equanimity. These are qualities that when you develop them, other people benefit too. You have to learn how to generate them, though, from within. If your goodness depends on the goodness of other people, you look at other people, it's up and down, up and down. In a case like that, you can't even depend on your own goodness. You have to be able to develop something from within. And these perfections don't just happen on their own. They have to be developed as well. But as I said, it's not the case that as you develop them, you're looking out only after yourself. Other people benefit too. There's the image the Buddha gives of 2 acrobats. They put up a pole, and they go up to climb up to the top of the pole. One acrobat stands on the pole, the other acrobat stands on his shoulders. And the first acrobat says, okay, now you look out after me and I'll look out after you, and that way we'll be able to perform our tricks and come down safely. And the assistant, standing on the first acrobat's shoulder, says, no, that's not the case. I have to look out after myself, you look out after yourself, and that way we both protect each other and come down safely. Because you think about being an acrobat, you have to maintain your balance. The other acrobat cannot maintain your balance for you. And as you maintain your balance, you make it easier for the other to maintain his or her balance. So this is the image the Buddha has you hold in mind. It's not the choice that you're either going to help others or help yourself. You're helping both when you practice. But you have to make up your mind that this is what you want to do. And this is why determination is probably of the different perfections is the most important, because every perfection requires that you determine that you're going to focus on it. Determination is a focused desire. So this is one desire I'm going to hold on to. Other desires will come up and meet against it. You have to be able to resist them, because you said this is the most important thing. And so I would like to talk a little bit about determination tonight, this morning. Determination, the Buddha says, comes in 4 steps if it's going to be wise. And the first step is using your discernment, deciding on what would be a good goal, how to approach that goal, and then being able to monitor your progress as you go along the way. So you have to ask yourself, what would be a useful goal or a worthwhile goal in this lifetime? The Buddha looked around himself and he saw that everything that he could focus on in the world was going to be taken away. Is there something that's not going to be taken away? What's the quality of his own mind? So you decide that, okay, I want to develop the qualities of my mind as my primary goal. And then you can look down that list of perfections. Ask yourself, which ones am I strong in? Which ones am I weak in? And then you focus on the ones where you're weak. Use your strengths to develop the ones where you're weak, so that you can bring all your perfections into balance. And then the question is, how do you go about doing that? Partly it comes from reading the text, getting some idea of what the Buddha taught about these different qualities. And also getting advice from other people, looking around you. You would think that people would say, gee, happiness is a really important thing in life. I should look very carefully to get some good examples. But people very rarely take good examples for happiness. They go for what's flashy, what's attractive. Without stopping to think, are these people really happy? So try to look around and see who's around you is really happy. The Buddha says discernment begins not when you go and ask a movie star, what's the best soap? Discernment begins when you ask a contemplative, what when I do it will lead to my long-term wealth and happiness? What when I do it will lead to my long-term harm and suffering? The wisdom there is, one, you see that your happiness will have to depend on your actions. Two, long-term happiness is possible. And then three, long-term is better than short-term. So, the Buddha is a good example of someone you might want to get his advice on. He says, long-term happiness comes from being generous, being virtuous, developing thoughts of goodwill. So give it a try. He takes his examples. But he also teaches you that there's some things he can teach you and some things you're going to have to observe on your own. It's like the billboards they used to have in Alaska. Alaska has a problem. It has lots of tourists during the summer, but it also has lots of bears. And most of the tourists come, they know nothing about bears at all. You see a bear and your first reaction is, ah, and you run away. And that's the worst thing to do, because then the bear will chase you. So they put up these big billboards to give you some advice on what to do when you see a bear. The piece of advice number one, don't run away. Stand your ground. Raise your arms over your head so that you look bigger than you are, because bears have very poor eyesight. Really. And then my favorite piece of advice is, speak to the bear in a calm, reassuring voice. Put the bear at ease. Then it says, if the bear runs at you, again, don't run away, stand your ground, because sometimes they're just trying to test you. And then it goes down the list of do's and don'ts, and finally it gets to the point where, suppose the bear has attacked you. Lie down and play dead. And then the next point is, if the bear starts nibbling on you, try to discern, is the bear nibbling on you out of curiosity or out of hunger? Now, to decide that, you have to have a lot of mindfulness and alertness. And it says, if the bear is chewing on you out of curiosity, it'll take 1 or 2 bites and stop and go away, if you don't react. If it looks like it's really hungry and it really wants to eat you, that's when you fight back. So at that point, that's the point where it's up to you. You have to decide for yourself. So there are a lot of things in life where there are rules, and the Buddha gives you the precepts, don't do this, don't do that. But there are a lot of areas where the Buddha said, you're going to have to look for yourself. You have to develop your own powers of observation. This is why we meditate, so that we can become more mindful, more solid, more alert, and learning how to read our own minds. Because it's not the bears outside that are the big problem, it's the bears inside your mind that you've got to watch out for. So this is a large part of discernment, is learning how to read your own mind. Read your actions, read the results of your actions. Because as I said last night, the Buddha's main teaching is about the power of action. So we have the power of choice. We do have some free choice in the present moment. The present moment is partly the result of past actions that we've done. A part of it is the result of what we're doing right now. You have to learn how to be sensitive to that, learn how to read that. In terms of how you breathe, how you talk to yourself, the perceptions you hold in mind, the feelings you're focusing on. If you find that you're putting the present moment together in an unskillful way, you can change. So this is the lesson of discernment. You're going to look for long-term happiness. You're not going to go just for the short term, you're going to go for the long term. That's the first principle in determination, which is using your discernment. The second principle is being true. In other words, once you've made up your mind that this is the path you want to follow, you have to stick with it. And there's going to be temptations to go here, go there, but you have to realize that this is something I have to be true to. This is why we take the precepts again and again and again to remind ourselves that this is a really important foundation. Years back, when Ajahn Thanissaro was teaching in America, he was teaching a retreat. And at the end of the retreat, people asked him, how do we carry our practice into daily life? And his answer was, observe the 5 precepts. And they got upset, thinking that he was implying that lay people cannot really meditate in daily life. But that's not the case. The important thing is that as you observe the precepts, that is a form of meditation. The word for meditation in Pali is bhavana, it means to develop. You're trying to develop good qualities. If you observe the precepts, 1, you're trying to make sure that you're harmless in your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. 2, you have to be mindful. Remember the precept that you've taken. 3, you have to be alert. Notice what you're actually doing. And 4, you have to be ardent in really sticking to the precept, because it's going to be difficult. A friend comes up to you wearing an ugly dress, and she asks, how do I look? And you have to decide, well, are you going to be really frank with her, or are you going to try to avoid the question? But you can't lie. You can't say it's a really nice dress. That's out. Okay. Maybe you're thinking, well, you look better this way than if you were naked. So, so it's positive. But you can't, out of convenience or out of trying to please people, tell a lie. Once you made up your mind, you're going to stick with the precept. So it requires your discernment. As you try to be ardent in sticking with this precept. Those qualities of mindfulness, alertness, and ardency, those are precisely the qualities you need to develop in mindfulness practice, concentration practice. So this is one of the reasons that you stay true to your determination. And the precepts are a really good test, especially the precept against lying, because it is so easy to say, well, I'll tell a little bit of a lie to please this other person, or I'm embarrassed to tell the truth, so to save face, I'll tell a lie. The Buddha says no lying at all, period. There's a story in the canon where Rahula, his son, sees the Buddha coming from in the distance, and you get the feeling from the story that Rahula must have told a lie that day. Because that's the first thing the Buddha brings up. Rahula set out some water for the Buddha to wash his feet, takes the dipper, washes his feet, leaves a little bit of water in the dipper. So see how little water there is in the dipper? Rahula says yes. So that's how little goodness there is in a person who tells a deliberate lie with no sense of shame. Throws the water away. So see how the water's been thrown away? Yes. That's what happens to the goodness of someone who tells a deliberate lie with no sense of shame. The goodness gets thrown away. So you see how empty it is? Yes. You're getting the point. And then he tells Rahula, do not tell a lie even in jest, even as a joke. This is where it's going to be a real test. As I said last night, you have to learn how to express your humor in other ways, besides exaggeration and besides fantasy. This is one of the tests. You have to say true to your determination, I'm really going to develop the qualities that lead toward awakening, rather than the qualities that just keep coming back into the world. The third is renunciation or relinquishment. There are going to be things you have to give up in order to stick to this. You have to talk yourself into giving them up and seeing it not that you're losing anything, but you're making a trade. You're getting something better in return. As with any act of generosity, you give an item. It's not that it's just gone now. You've earned something in terms of your generosity, the quality of your mind. Your quality of mind is broader. Your mind becomes more expansive. And the world becomes part of your home. So when you give a gift, it's like saying, you're part of my family. When you set a price on something, that says, okay, you're outside the family. This is why the monks always refer to lay people in Thailand, they refer to them as relatives. Because there's a sense of extended family. We live on what's called an economy of gifts, rather than transactions. This ability to give up is something that people have to learn. I have a friend who's an author. She's also a professor at a university. And she writes books, and she has a background in Chinese, and so she writes novels, usually set in China. And in one of her novels, it starts out with a young woman losing her mother, and the father saying, I will be true to your mother's memory, I'm not going to remarry at all. And for a couple months, he's true to his promise. And then he's sent on government business down to South China. Comes back, he has a wife. Courtesan. And so the courtesan's a good woman, though, so she wants to be a good mother to the girl. And so one evening they're playing chess. And as they're playing chess, the mother is saying to the young girl, if you want to be happy, you have to figure out there's one thing you want in life more than anything else. And you have to be willing to give that one thing up for the sake of, give everything else up for the sake of that one thing. And as they're playing chess, the girl is noticing, she's kind of half listening, half not listening to her mother. But she notices her mother's beginning to lose pieces all over the board. So she thinks, oh, my mother must be a bad chess player. So she starts getting more aggressive, not realizing that the mother has set a trap. The mother, checkmate, gets her. So the way she's playing chess is illustrating the point she's trying to make, right? She's willing to lose pieces in order to win the game. Now, my friend, being a professor at the university, whenever she publishes a new novel, she's invited to the alumni clubs to read parts of the novel. And so this was the incident in the novel she chose to read. And she told me that after reading it 2 or 3 times, she had to find another part of the novel. Nobody wanted to hear the lesson. Everyone wants to keep all their pieces and win. It doesn't work that way. You have to realize there are things you're going to have to give up. So you have to learn how to talk to yourself to realize, keep yourself on course. That I always stick with this determination to stay true to my training of my mind. And then finally there's calm. And this is how a large part of talking to yourself is saying, I have to give these things up, but I can do this with equanimity, I can do this with patience, because I know the results are going to be good down the line. You've probably seen that experiment they did with little kids and donuts. They give a little kid a donut, and they said, if you don't eat the donut in the next 5 minutes, when we come back, we'll give you a second donut. And they had a camera on them, and some of the kids just sat there waiting, and they got the second donut. Other kids nibbled a little bit. There was one kid right away. And then they followed these people through life. They found that the kids who were able to hold themselves back from eating that donut tended to do better in life in general as they grew up. Whereas the kids who couldn't control themselves are the ones who did not do well in life at all. So it's the principle of learning how to talk to yourself, saying, I'm going to be better off if I stick with this project, rather than just giving into my desires right away. So those are the 4 qualities that you require for every good determination, especially the determination to train your mind. You use your discernment to choose a good goal, you're true to the goal, you give up whatever gets in the way of attaining the goal, and you maintain your mind in a state of calm. Because it's leading ultimately to a state of even greater calm. Now I'll give you an example in terms of the other different perfections. The example is goodwill. Sometimes we're told that goodwill is an innate quality in the mind. It's there in the mind, but also ill will can also be in the mind very easily. Human goodwill tends to be partial. The people that you like, the people you love, you have goodwill for them. The people who've been nasty to you, the people who've been cruel to you, or cruel to other people, you tend not to have goodwill for them. This is why the attitude of unlimited goodwill is not called a manusa vihara, a human attitude. It's a Brahma vihara. It's the attitude of the Brahmas. There's a higher level of mind. So it's something you have to train yourself in, and you have to be determined on it. Like the Buddha says, this is a form of mindfulness that you have to determine on. So again, you use those 4 qualities of good determination. One, you use your discernment. First, you realize, why do you want to develop goodwill? You realize it's for the sake of being good to the other person, but also for the sake of being good to yourself. Because if you have ill will for anybody, you're going to mistreat that person easily. So you have to have an attitude that no matter what that person has done, I'm going to maintain my goodwill, in spite of other things. Then you learn how to talk to yourself to maintain that goodwill. The Buddha gives you some examples to hold in mind. Suppose, say that someone treats you in unkind or unkind way, or they lie to you. Try to think of your goodwill as being large like the earth. This other person is someone who comes along, a little man comes along with a little hoe and a little shovel, and he's going to try to make the earth be without earth. So he digs here and digs there, spits here, spits there, urinates here, urinates there, saying, be without earth, be without earth. But the earth is so much bigger. So you've got to perceive your goodwill as being large like the earth. Another example the Buddha gives is of people trying to write words in space. But there's nothing in space for it to stick to. So try to make your mind have that quality of being like space. People can say things, but it doesn't stick. So you use your discernment in order to maintain your goodwill. Teaching yourself ways to think, thinking yourself ways to perceive the situation, so it becomes easier to maintain your goodwill. Then you also have to think about, what does goodwill mean? It doesn't mean, may you be happy doing whatever you want, whatever you're doing. If people are acting in an unskillful way, the wish is, may you see the error of your ways and be willing and able to change. Now that's the wish you can have for anybody without hypocrisy. Remember, as the Buddha said, you're not only wishing for people to be happy, but wishing for them to create the causes for happiness. And then you yourself have to create a good mind state. This is the point that I skipped over just now, or mentioned briefly just now. As the Buddha said, you create a mind state in the present moment by the way you breathe, by the way you talk to yourself, by the images, perceptions, and feelings you hold in mind. And so again, you learn how to, when anger comes, you learn how to breathe calmly to calm yourself down. You learn how to talk to yourself, realizing, okay, it's better not to do anything while I'm angry, wait till the anger goes, then I can think about what's the proper thing to say. And then hold these perceptions, like perception like your mind is like earth, or your goodwill is like space. The things just don't stick. So you have skill in knowing what does it mean to be happy, what does it mean to wish someone else happiness, and how do you create that state of mind? This is all involved in the discernment that comes around developing goodwill. Then the truth of goodwill. Okay, again, you have to stick with it. You can't just sit here and say, may all beings be happy, may all beings be happy. And then get in your car and drive away, somebody cuts in front of you, and may this being go to hell. Say, may this being learn how to drive carefully. Because spreading thoughts of goodwill is very different from spreading thoughts of dedicating merit. When you dedicate merit, you're done with it. Now, whether that other person will accept the merit or not, that's up to that other person. But when you spread thoughts of goodwill, you have to carry through with them. Because that's the whole point of developing this mind state. It's not just to have a nice blissful mind state while you're sitting here. It's to carry that attitude out into the world, where it seems like everybody in the world is going to test your goodwill. You have to be prepared for that. So you have to be true and learn how to talk to yourself in order to maintain that attitude. Realizing I don't have to like these people, but I do have to have goodwill for them, no matter what they do. As the Buddha said, even if bandits have you pinned down and they're sawing you up in little pieces with a two-handled saw, you still have to have goodwill for them. Why is that? If they pin you down and are sawing you pieces, you're probably going to die. You don't want to die with ill will in your mind. Because it will lead you to a bad rebirth. The rebirth, whether you're looking for revenge, you don't want that kind of rebirth. This, by the way, is the meaning of that image where the Buddha says, just as a mother would care for her only child, so you should care for your goodwill. Sometimes it's translated as, just as a mother would love her child, you should love all beings. The Buddha didn't say that. You should cultivate goodwill for all beings. Protect your goodwill in the same way that you would protect your child. You have to remember that in the time of the Buddha, they didn't have Social Security, they didn't have social net, or what do you call it, retirement funds in Malaysia? EPF. Okay, they had no EPF in those days. And so if you were a mother with an only son, you looked after your son, because that was your EPF. So in the same way, you have to look after your goodwill, even if it means losing your life, you maintain your goodwill, because your goodwill is more important. So that's the quality of truth that you have to develop. And then what you have to let go, of course, there will be things that sometimes when you have goodwill for other beings, you have to let them take advantage of you. But more importantly, you have to get rid of your prejudices against this group of people, that group of people. I don't like these people, I don't like those people. You have to say we're all brothers and sisters in this way. Just think about all the many lifetimes you've been through. You've probably been just that kind of person that you don't like right now. Many, many times. And so you were going to be, back in those days, you wanted to be treated with goodwill. You treat these people with goodwill as well. And then finally, there's the quality of calm. When you're spreading thoughts of goodwill, beings to be happy. One of the ways in which beings test that goodwill is when they are happy, but they abuse their good fortune. You say, oh my gosh, this is what people look like when they're happy. I don't know. Well, if they're abusing their good fortune, they are not creating the causes for future happiness. You have to have compassion for them. But you have to come down to the realization that even though you may want all beings to be skillful, not everybody is going to choose to be skillful. Which is why the Buddha has you develop thoughts of equanimity. That people have freedom of choice. You have your freedom of choice. You have to grant that freedom to other people as well. Even the Buddha didn't. The question came to the Buddha one time: would all beings eventually go to awakening? He didn't answer. How about half the world? Would that go to awakening? He wouldn't answer. A third of the world, he didn't answer. Ananda was there, and he was afraid that the person, the Brahmin, who was asking a question, would get upset. Here he's asking an important question, and the Buddha is saying, he's being silent. So Ananda pulls him off to the side. He says, suppose there's a gatekeeper to a fortress. There's one big gate to the fortress, and then the gatekeeper walks around the fortress. He doesn't see a hole even big enough for a cat to slip through. Does he know how many people are going to come in and out of the fortress? No. But he does know that if they're going to come in and out of the fortress, they have to go by the gate. In the same way, the Buddha doesn't know how many people are going to gain awakening, because everybody has freedom of choice. You can change your mind at any time. But he does know if you're going to gain awakening, you have to follow the path of skillful action, abandoning the hindrances, developing the practice for awakening, developing mindfulness. In the same way, all beings have freedom of choice. So you have to accept that fact. You have to be equanimous about that. As I said, when you get in the car every morning, which is, may all beings out there drive safely. But you know, not everybody's going to drive safely, so you have to be prepared. In the same way we do goodwill. Yeah, I have goodwill for all beings, but not everybody's going to behave in a skillful way. I have to be prepared for that, which is why we have equanimity. Realizing that beings are the owners of their actions. So this is a way in which you use the four qualities of determination: discernment, truth, relinquishment, and calm, to develop the perfection of goodwill. The same lessons can be applied to all the perfections. This is how you develop goodness from within. Because the goodness that you develop from within, that's really yours. Nobody can take that away. The Buddha said there are 5 kinds of loss in the world. There's loss of your relatives, loss of your health, loss of your wealth, loss of your right view, loss of your virtue. Now, those 5 kinds of loss, he said loss of your relatives, loss of your health, loss of your wealth, those are not important. Because that's not going to take you to hell. It's loss of your virtue, loss of your right view. Those will take you to hell. So these are the things you have to look after most carefully. The goodness in your mind. The fortunate thing is that you don't have to lose these things. So the other three, no matter how well you care for your health, you're going to lose it eventually. You're going to be separated from your relatives. You're going to be separated from your health, from your wealth. That's going to happen naturally. But you don't have to be separated from your right view. You don't have to be separated from your virtue. The same principle applies to all the perfections. So when you work on these perfections, it's for your goodness. You have your own independent source of goodness. And you don't have to lose it. It's like you have your own money-generating machine. You create this wealth from within, and you can keep on creating it. Now, unlike the money of the world, if they created just lots and lots and lots of money, the value of the money would go down. But with inner wealth, the more you create, the value goes up.